Welcome to the Creative Condition podcast, an ongoing series of conversations and considerations to help people understand and embrace their own unique creativity for fulfilling lives and brilliant careers. My name is Ben Tallon. I'm an illustrator and author, and I bring 16 years of creative industry experience working with the New York Times, The Guardian, the Premier League, and more. And I invite designers, artists, psychologists, scientists, coaches, athletes, sensitivity experts, and all kinds of thought leaders to help us broaden our knowledge of creativity. Creativity is a fundamental pillar of human happiness, a vital ingredient in the solutions to our problems, but so often misunderstood. The show is supported by founding sponsor and B Corp, Illustration X. Take a look at their stunning range of illustrators and animators at illustrationx.com. If you like the music for the show, it's by Dirty Freud, who you can listen to now on Spotify and all good music streaming services. Hello and welcome back to the Creative Condition. This is this week's wrap-up section. We are following on and recapping what we've learned about creativity from Ragged Edge founder Max Ottignon live at D&AD New Blood Festival. We had a great conversation. You can hear both editions of this week's show now. You can hear the crunched, crisp, snappy highlights edition for you time-poor people. You can hear the full-length chit-chat from D&AD Festival also. Grab it now. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, wherever else you get your podcasts, you can find the conversation now. Do give us a little rating, review and subscription, please. If you get a moment, it really helps the show. And I'll tell you what else helps the show. The sponsorship from Illustration X, who've been here since day one, helped me get the show off the ground. So a big thank you to those guys. Do go and check out their embarrassment of cultural riches, their illustration and animation portfolios now at illustrationx.com. Also a big thank you to the Ukrainian Institute for their increasingly important work on behalf of an embattled Ukrainian creative community. Please do your bit. There are lots of little things and big things you can do to help these talented, brave people at such a horrific time of war. ui.org.ua. Now, without further ado, let's recap. What did we learn from Max Ottignon this week? So our conversation was around branding in the age of convergence, which is kind of Max's shtick at the moment. He recognised a sea of sameness that was rising up around us, algorithmic creativity, serving the expected, and ultimately resulting in a lot of grey, a lot of work full of fear that wasn't really challenging or pushing or commenting or showing any kind of voice. And that's what we had our conversation about. So that brings me to point one. We learned that we're making it easy for the bots. So when I say that, I mean we really are servicing the algorithm at the moment. I feel we're still in a wild west of the internet era. It's a funny thing to say because we've been using the internet now, I think, the majority of us since, 1999, 2000. I know it was around before then, but truly we only started getting it in our homes through dial-up and everything else. Especially if you are like me from a working class background, lower middle class, maybe it wasn't, or, if you didn't work in tech, for example, it wasn't so prevalent back then at that point. So that still means it's been going for about 25 years. And yet we are still in this era of largely unpoliced, Wild West internet where it's a bit of a free-for-all in terms of what it's doing to our mental health and affecting us. And I do think that the big players in the tech industry are funneling us down this road of serving the algorithm, chasing the engagement, chasing the likes, providing the expected. And we're getting our inspiration from places that are causing also more of that. Pinterest, Google Images, it's if our research and our ideas stop and start there, then we are invariably going to create a lot of sameness, and that was Max's concern. And I do think we're still making it easy. I think that I'm guilty of it. I walk around the streets and what I see is people with their head at a 90-degree angle on their phone, catching up on messages, catching up on their social media posting, scrolling entertaining themselves, watching TV shows, and just not taking in the world around them, not reading different books, not going to libraries, not getting into theatres, not getting into cinemas, not looking up for a minute and just giving their brain a little bit of rest. And I think that what it's creating is all of our discourse and all of our creativity is through the internet, is through tech, through screens. And I think it is just feeding this homogenization of culture, flattening of culture. That's a topic we're going to get even deeper into this with Kyle Chaker, staff writer at The New Yorker and author of Filter World, How Algorithms Flattened Culture. That's coming up. Awesome episode. But to Max's point, on this episode, we are making it easy for the bots, not the box. We are kind of boxed in, but it's not what I meant to say. Number 2, welcoming clients into the creative process can be beneficial for all. Now, this was an interesting part of the conversation because I'd sort of said that you can be risky in your own working environment. You don't have to show it to the client. You don't have to let them in on those early stages to create some freedom. And I think I was wrong because Max's response was kind of, actually, what we've always pushed for is to bring the client in every step of the way because they get excited, they get involved, they go to bat for you. That's interesting, isn't it? Maybe it's something about a balance of the two. Maybe it's about having the people skills and the emotional intelligence to recognise when it's a good time to do that and when it needs to stay within a creative team or with the individual to create in solitude. I don't really know. It's always a fluid process, but I just found that really interesting. And I do think there's something to be said, to Max's point, about bringing people in to the process. I know that some of my favourite projects, I'll give you an example. So the Lynx global packaging redesign, I was brought in to create about 80 different illustrations to go on the packaging. So I did Lynx Africa, I did Lynx Apollo, which is only in the States, I think. There were Indian-specific brands, there were Australian-specific brands. This was a proper global job over 2 years working with a team of designers, creative directors. We worked with the client Unilever. There was so many hoops to jump through if you looked at it that way. But the seed of the idea stemmed from a personal project of mine, and it was Ben Lambert, who's the MD of PB Creative, who did that job, who saw something organic and alive in my work that he thought, if we packaged it right and if we presented it to the client and we brought them in from the start of the process, that they could get excited about it and it would really work for their desired younger, new Gen Z audience. And that's exactly what happened. So it started with Ben and I. We got it to a point where he knew he could take it to the client and show it to them in a way that would be understandable outside of our brains. But from that moment on, they were on board and we all bought in. And it's one of the most creative and commercial jobs I've ever done. So I think that's the thing. Take your clients along for the ride. Get good at articulating what you mean. Get good at presenting it clearly, but with dynamism and excitement, and go to bat for your own ideas. Number 3, psychological safety can enable a culture of creative confidence. I love what Max said about creating psychological safety in the workplace. Now, one of the things I've been doing in my own coaching modules that I've been developing recently is looking at the duality of everything. It's an absolute precursor to working with me on the coaching stuff. So for every little thing you consider a negative or a weakness about yourself, there's a flip side and there's an opportunity in there. Big believer in that. Vice versa is also true. For all those big strengths and the things you consider a real defining character that people might want to work with you for, there will also be a pitfall waiting to happen if you don't manage that properly. And there will also be a pitfall that if you can't manage it, it will kick you in the balls. It's it's kind of, like I said, I've given this example before, but my own passion, my own work ethic is second to none. But if I don't manage that, if I don't shape it properly, I can be a bull in a china shop and I can run myself into the ground. I burn out. I take on too many things. So you've got to look at the duality of it. And I think that with psychological safety, you've got to offset that with a little bit of jeopardy, with a little bit of adventure and danger, and feel like you're under pressure, feel like there's risk, feel like those big ballsy ideas are going to rattle some cages, but actually might be the best ones. So there you have it. Psychological safety can enable a culture of creative confidence. Number 4, pushing to the edge of what's possible. There's something worth remembering about that, and it's that bit of what's possible. That can make or break a creative career, in my opinion. We all have those lofty ideas where it's radical and it's new, but within the realm of intellectual creativity, which is what we're talking about here, commercial creativity, pushing to the edge is really important, taking the risk, taking the chance. But knowing what's possible is equally important. And I think if you can straddle the balance of those two, then that's when you get the best results in a commercial environment. I think that's what Max is talking about, is fostering an environment where the staff get a sense of what is possible with a client and pushing to the absolute limits of that to get the best solution to a creative problem. Number 5, the risky things to do are often the smartest things to do. Love that. Love that from Max. I think that's a really great point he made there. That again, it's about creating and cultivating a relationship with clients so that they know that when you are being risky, you are doing so from a place of knowledge, love, and care for their brand, for them as a client. So that risky is just exciting and not necessarily something that's going to provoke fear. I think that's a really, really great thing. It's almost a mantra, isn't it? Max is full of mantras, and I liked that. That's why I loved chatting to him and wanted to, leap off of his talk and then take it somewhere else in our own conversation. So there you have it. 5 things we learned from Max Ottignon, founder of Ragged Edge, live at D&AD New Blood Festival. Hope you enjoyed that. I hope you took a lot from today's conversation. If you haven't already heard the episode, please do go back and listen to it. It's a strong one. Nice one, guys. Big thank you for listening. Thank you to the sponsor, illustrationx.com, and the ui.org.ua, the Ukrainian Institute. Thank you to everyone who came to our live conversation at New Blood and everyone who's engaged with the podcast this week. And of course, to my guest, Max Ottignon. Nice one, guys. See you next time.